You're listening to the REI Marketing Nerds Podcast, the leading resource for real estate investors who want to dominate their market online. Dan Barrett is the founder of AdWords Nerds, a high-tech digital agency focusing exclusively on helping real estate investors like you get more leads and deals online, outsmart your competition, and live a freer, more awesome life. And now, your host, Dan Barrett.
Hey guys, welcome back. You're listening to the second part of last week's episode. Let's jump back in.
I want to talk about Deaton Equity Partners. So bring us up to speed on like what you guys are doing in the context of the company today. Like, what's your business model? Who do you serve? Walk us through Deaton Equity Partners.
Sure, yeah. So we started Deaton Equity Partners a couple of years ago, as I mentioned, really just to diversify into the commercial space. And it was, again, so we really started making a lot of money with land. And the first year that we had a lot of success, well, that next year, we also had a really huge tax bill. And I was like, I am not going to pay this amount of taxes year after year. So really started diving into what can we do? And another Robert Kiyosaki connection, a guy named Tom Wheelwright is his CPA and does a lot of his work. Well, he's written some books and one of his is on tax and wealth planning and strategies. And he gets into the benefits of multiple areas, but the one that resonated for me was commercial real estate. His thing is the government uses incentives and taxes to shape social policy, right? So they incentivize businesses, right? They need people to be employed. So they want you to open businesses. So they'll give tax advantages to people that start businesses. Well, same thing for commercial real estate. We all need housing. We need affordable quality housing. And so they've created a basket of incentives for people to go out and chase that and help provide for the country things that are needed. And so, commercial real estate being one of those, we started looking at the different areas. So there's obviously retail space where you have businesses that lease space to run brick and mortar businesses. There's self-storage units, and multifamily were broadly the ones that we at least initially looked at. And, multifamily resonated the most with us. And so we just started we did about 6 months of research in terms of different ways to make it work. Our going in position was, we'll buy a rent house. We'll rent it. We'll buy a duplex. We'll rent that. And the more research we did, the more people that were bypassing those smaller entry points and getting into 100+ unit apartment homes in a syndication model, which is basically just pooling together a group of investors, right? If you need $1 million as a down payment, a lot of people don't have $1 million, but if you put 10 people with 100,000 or 20 people with 50, then you can get that. You all share in the profits. And so that's largely what Deaton Equity Partners was started for. And so we do a combination of personal investing. So we invest through the company in our own deals as a way of generating passive income. It's very easy, right? We find the deals we like, we invest some money, and we get a little bit of cash flow year after year, and then a bigger cash payout, either at a refinance or a sale or things like that. But we also have time on our hands and an interest in the industry. And so we are also more on the active side. So we're out there finding deals, talking with brokers, underwriting properties, and gathering the equity needed to do that. And so we do a little bit of both. We, through Deaton Equity Partners, generate a lot of investor interest, and it's typically, not uncommon or not what you would, believe to be uncommon. People like us, right? It's people that want to generate some cash flow. They want some tax advantages. Maybe they're interested in starting their own business. Maybe they're interested just in getting some cash flows to enable a little more lifestyle freedom, something like that. But you attract the people that you attract your tribe, right? So it's very much a lot of investors that are similar to us. But that's kind of what we do with that. We've invested over the last 2 years in 1,200 units, I would say. So that's across around 8 properties. They're generally 100 to 200 units. we like the Texas markets a lot. I mean, I'm from Texas. It's a high growth state. It's very landlord friendly. A lot of the macro factors are lining up to keep it very strong. So we have properties in Dallas Fort Worth area and in some other areas of Texas, but we also are in some deals in other states. And so, yeah, we very much have centered the company around trying to help other people generate lifestyle freedom. And so we do a little bit of education. We're looking to ramp up more of that just to help teach people about the different ways within multifamily, but also outside of multifamily to put your money to work and allow you to take back more of your time rather than, feel like you have to be punching the clock or you're not making money. And so it's been such a liberating avenue for us that we love giving it back. And it's kind of one of the cornerstones of that business. One of the reasons we love multifamily as well is it puts capital back into communities, right? So we'll buy an older apartment building, and with the equity that we raise, in addition to the down payment, there's usually some equity to renovate and improve the lifestyle of the community. It also increases the value of the property, so it's kind of a win-win. But that's, outside of self-storage or other things, multifamily felt a little more another way to give back, put our money to use. So that's kind of what we do with Deaton Equity Partners. And we've been growing it nicely over the last couple of years. And
I will say, I think so for people listening to this, right? First of all, if you're an investor, you're at all interested in syndication, or you're an investor and you're just curious about, maybe working with Mike or whatever you just want to see, I really suggest you go check out the website, right? So it's DeatonEquityPartners.com. We mentioned that. Mm-hmm. Also, you can go to /freedom there to get a whole bunch of stuff. But one of the things I love about your sort of company and your brand, right? I think you guys do a really incredible job of spelling out the benefit to the investor that you are trying to work with, right? Like there are a lot of investors who try to attract other investors into, a fund or whatever, right? This is a common thing, even people who are just looking to build a buyer's list or something like that for wholesale property. This is a common marketing challenge. And I think investors are used to marketing to sellers, right? Because they're used to getting deals. And for some reason, they almost have a harder time talking to other investors about why me, right? So I just want to point this out, right? Right on the website, when you load up Deaton Equity Partners, it says passive income for life, right? And then it says, we help busy professionals like you generate passive income to reclaim your time and fuel your life's adventures. So you've got all this like really cool copy. You've got pictures of you and your wife, like doing all sorts of cool stuff. Yeah. It's just such a great job of speaking to the kind of hopes and aspirations of somebody that make them interested in investing to begin with, right? Like you guys have done a really good job. So
thank you.
I'm curious, like for you guys, what has the process of, you're saying like you've done a good job of attracting interest from investors, people interested in investing. What has that process been like, right? Like when you got started, how did you start reaching out and finding people to sort of partner with? What was challenging about that, or what seems to have worked really well about that process?
So I'll speak to that from a couple of levels. So when we started and we had an interest to get into the space, we really embarked on educating. And so we looked at what books are out there, and we were coming at it a little bit more from taking an active role in buying properties, running properties. If you're a passive investor, or if you're interested in just using your capital investing, similar like you would in a stock or something else, it's a little bit different journey. I mean, you still should take time to get educated and learn the ins and outs of the business, learn the red flags to look for, where you could be manipulated potentially in terms of, people present a business case. Well, you need to dig below the surface a little bit to understand the variables. But, for us going into this and starting a business, when we started our land business, we joined a community, right? We found a mentor, we joined a community, we started going to some workshops, and it really accelerated our path to success. Well, we wanted to take a similar approach in multifamily. And so we started looking at what type of educational programs are there out there. And there's a lot. And so, we took the time to find the one that resonated with us. And we joined a community, and we paid to join, a coaching program to get educated, just knowing that, one, it would accelerate our own growth. Two, it would introduce us to a network of professionals that were already in the business. And so, we got quickly plugged into other investors, other syndicators, the legal side of the business, mortgage brokers, a whole ecosystem of people in the space. And so we kind of had a ready-made community that we were able to plug into and leverage. And then, on top of that, we found a mentor and a coach who has a really, 15, 20 years experience in the business, such that we could leverage his learning. And one of the things that attracted us to land was you can enter the business very inexpensively. You can buy and sell land for hundreds of dollars if you want. Well, in this larger scale multifamily, we're talking tens of millions of dollars. And so a mistake in that business is just, it could be catastrophic. And so, having that experience behind us was really critical for us and worth a really good investment to go into that. So, for us, it was about finding our tribe that we wanted to join and helping us along our path. And so, that was the initial start. And then in terms of the investing side, I was totally unfamiliar with. I had done sales before in my life, a time or two, but our going in thought was friends and family. Well, once you really get into that conversation, we don't actually like having family in our deals, right? I mean, I don't, it just complicates relationships a lot of times.
I was going to say this was on a much smaller scale, a lesson that took me a long time to learn. Mm-hmm. Like I'm naturally want to bring everyone I know into all my stuff. And it's really difficult. It is really difficult to do well. Yeah,
it is. I mean, exactly to your point. That's the conversation we have with most people is it has transformed our lives. And this is a very stable, traditionally high yielding investment class. Mm-hmm. And so when we find good deals, we want to shout it from the rooftops and share it with as many people as we can. Right. But there is that, with friends and family, there is a little bit of, it gets a little too personal sometimes. And so, a lot of our conversations are really just with people who find their way to us. We keep a fairly small investor list. I like to personally know everybody I'm working with. Yeah. I like to understand their goals and their discretionary income and be able to say, hey, maybe you should rethink investing in this deal or putting this much money in, or, make sure you have a cushion there. Multifamily is the returns are outstanding and the tax benefits are great. But, contrary to the stock market, it's less liquid. I mean, you get into a deal and you're in it for 5 years, roughly, and you don't have access to that money should you need it. So, there's a little more caution that needs to come into it. And that's where you really want a good guide or somebody that's helping you along and making sure it's the right one for you. And you understand the ins and outs of it. But those conversations become easier over time, as with anything, right? Once you understand a little more, and then once you have practiced a conversation or have answered certain questions, then it's a familiar path. And so it's a lot easier road for us these days. But it's been good. And I highly encourage it, any form of real estate, whether it's single family home or multifamily. I mean, there's risk on both sides. The majority of people I know have had bad experiences in the single family home, and they're just more prone to the shocks than the larger plays. But it's all, if you have a long enough, as long as you're not locked into needing something in the next year, you can weather, any setback or recession or something. I mean, generally it's appreciating over the long term, similar to the stock market. But
I think you one of the things that really comes across about you that I think makes you good at what you're doing is you come across as very transparent and also like very concerned about meeting the needs of the other person and making sure it's a win-win situation, right? Which is always like, if you're going to invest with someone, you want to know they're not just roping you into something that's good for them, right? You don't want to be grist for the mill. You want to be a partner in that. And I think, you guys have kind of done such a great job of that. And again, I highly recommend people go check out the Deaton Equity Partners website because they do such a good job of speaking to this. And I think that's something that any investor can look at and sort of model in their own business, whether you're doing syndication or you're doing wholesaling, flipping or whatever. You need to talk to the needs of the people that are going to be your clients, your customers, your sellers, whatever. I think you guys have just done a great job on that. I want to end, because we're coming up on time, I want to pull a deep cut from your LinkedIn.
Okay.
And I want to ask you about your life coaching certification. You have a Robbins Madani's life coaching. So I'm going to ask about this because we talked about this. We do a pre-interview before we do the show. So we spent a lot of time talking about like personal development and stuff.
Yeah.
And I love personal development. It's probably no surprise. At some point, I thought about getting that certification. I was like, maybe. And then I just didn't do it. I am really curious what your experience was like, what you got out of that, if anything. If you're going to tell me that Tony Robbins beat you up in a parking lot, we can edit it out after. But I'm just super
great story.
Yeah. He's huge. I mean, you look tall. I can't tell. You look tall on screen, but it's like he's a giant dude. But yeah, I'm super curious, like what your experience was then, what you got.
No, it's great. It's so when I found myself out of work in 2016, a lot of soul searching. I hired a coach to help me think through and pull out a path. And, part of that was some of the values work. Some of that was other exercises. But through that process and really exploring my past, what I really loved from my corporate career was the coaching aspect. I loved having a team. I loved developing them. And to my detriment, quite frankly, like I was the type of manager that was promoting all of my team, and I do a terrible job of patting myself on the back. And so, but for me, that's what was resonating strongly. And so in that moment, kind of a parallel path for me was also, and I also am a personal development junkie since I was probably 18 or 19. I think actually, I think I was 17 or 18, and I found, going through my parents' storage unit or something, a set of Tony Robbins personal power cassette tapes.
Yeah. I don't think these are worth money anywhere, but it feels like they should be worth money somewhere.
Yeah,
to actually get the cassettes. They're cool.
Yes. Yeah. So I think I might have been 16 or so when I did that, but I started listening to them, and it was pretty impactful to think about the power of your mindset and different things. And so, since then when I was in the work world, I was reading managerial development books and parenting books. And I love to explore different concepts, and I'm not so good at applying them in my life. I'm a consumer of information, and it's so hard to apply. But part of my path was really just wanting to be a coach. I do that today on a very, very small scale. It's unfortunately, unless you are Tony Robbins, it's a hard industry. You're back to trading your time for money, especially if you're in a one-on-one type client situation. I do like to mentor and coach today on a very small scale, but the Robbins Madani's program was a great. It's one called strategic intervention. It's a certain style of coaching that's a little more. He's a believer that you don't need to sit on a therapist's couch and mine into your psyche and understand why. You just need a different solution and to be able to apply it.
Yeah.
And so, obviously that's situational. There are some people that really need professional help and do things like that. But, in the world of just personal development and improvement, a lot of times once we recognize that we're in a certain pattern and that there are, most of what coaching is about exposure to different options, to get a client to realize that there are other solutions out there, and there are a world of other options, and that you can pursue those. And so Yeah, it's something near and dear to my heart. I'm still on a search of how to make that more of my day-to-day life at some scale, whether it's just through education or other things. But it's such a rewarding thing for me to be of service and to see someone really transform. And when they come back and go, "Oh my God, thank you so much for helping me through this crisis moment," or whatever. It's just for me, there's nothing better than that.
Yeah. I mean, it strikes me, right? It's like we talked about, going from Nokia to Microsoft to in land and then, apartments or commercial. And it's like, no matter what your industry, no matter what your business, you always have to have, there's some interpersonal, it's either you and an employee or you and a client or you and your, vice president, CEO, whatever. Like there's always that interpersonal relationship piece. And it strikes me as like such a cool kind of just tool to add to the toolbox, right? And I think it's really neat. Well, Mike, I have to say, like, this was awesome. I've been looking forward to this conversation for a while. I was super excited to have you on.
Yeah, likewise, Dan.
equitypartners.com/freedom is the landing page that people can go to. They can check out all your stuff. I highly recommend that you do that. Is there a place that you want people to kind of look you up on social media or anything like that?
LinkedIn's probably where I'm most active. I don't know exactly what my handle is, but that's honestly why we put the landing page together, was just such that, like, if people are interested in land, we have a little land teaser that says, "Hey, here's the person that I mentored under. Here's a few other options. Here's a little bit how it works, a process flow," which I'm kind of in. Here's multifamily, same thing, but it also has our social handles and some contact info. So as far as business goes, I would say LinkedIn is probably the one that I'm most active on, which is not very much. So it's an area.
I was going to see you have a good LinkedIn page. I checked it out earlier. And I was like, oh, there's like posts on here and stuff. Like, usually it's...
I want to do more. Social media is a bittersweet aspect, as it is for most people, right? I mean, I hate to be sucked into it. It's a necessary evil in today's damn world. It gives a lot of reach and there's a lot of benefit, but I can be a lot better.
Yeah. It's like, I want to reach everyone, but I don't want anyone to reach me. So how do I do that?
Yeah.
It'll be fun. Well, again, for folks listening to this, it's Deaton equitypartners.com. So DEATON equitypartners.com/freedom to go and check out everything that Mike Deaton is doing over there. Mike, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. I had an absolute blast and I really appreciate it.
Likewise, Dan. It was a tremendous pleasure. And, if anybody is interested, I love just connecting. So no pressure. Even if you want some ideas, feel free to reach out.
That is it. That's the end of this week's episode. As always, you can find all our past episodes plus show links and all that fun stuff at AdWordsNerds.com. And hey, if you could leave a review of this podcast wherever you get your podcasts, it would really help me out. I read every single one, whether it's a comment on YouTube or a review on Spotify or iTunes or anything. It means the world to me and it helps other people find the show. So I hope you go ahead and do that. As always, this is Daniel Barrett from REI Marketing Nerds signing off, and I will be seeing you next week. Cheers.
This is the podcastfactory.com.